welcome back to my channel. It's been a couple months since I've posted anything. Last thing I posted was the video of my Mother's Day card that I make for my wife every year. This illustration here happens to be another illustration for my wife. I'll dive into that in a minute. So what have I been up to all these months? Well, aside from standard life stuff and the kids being home from school for the summer, or I guess they're not home from the school, they're not college age yet, but when they're around all day, every day during the summer, it kind of makes my ability to be productive more challenging. But I also spent the bulk of the summer working on my ultimate everyday carry bag that is still not quite done. I've sort of spent a lot of the summer sewing and making stuff, which is cool, but it's not art. Hoping to get back into more of my art routine again coming up soon, with this being part of the start of that. So what this here is 4 years ago I started a tradition, in addition to the Mother's Day cards that I've been doing since my oldest son was born. I started drawing dragons for my wife because she loves dragons, and she has to sit at a computer all day, every day for work, and these are formatted and designed so that she can use them as her wallpaper. Brighten up her day a little bit, I guess. So this one took me quite a while. The total hours I put into it was somewhere between 35 and 40, I think. Took me a while to come up with my idea. I knew generally that I wanted to, every year that I do one of these, I've decided that I want to have the dragon fit into some kind of different ecological niche, if that makes sense. So last year there was a sea dragon, year before that was a little tiny mushroom-sized dragon, and the very first one was a standard kind of flying dragon. So this year I decided to go with a forest dragon, something that's roughly like deer-sized, I guess. Looks a little bit more anatomically like a jacked up deer than it does maybe a stereotypical dragon. I did use my copy of Science of Creature Design by the wonderful Terrell Whitlatch, which was a great help in just figuring out sort of what the anatomy might look like for a creature like this. It's not perfect, doesn't look great. I'm not as skilled or as practiced as I'd like to be, particularly when it comes to animal anatomy. But I guess I learn, I grow. This is the process of getting there. This particular illustration was kind of I don't know if emotion is the right word, but I guess emotional roller coaster, just because I went through periods of liking what I was producing and liking what was coming out of my hands. And then a split second later, I just hate everything. I felt like I should be able to do so much better. I should be able to do something differently, or I couldn't produce what I could see in my head or what I wanted to produce. And, some of that was the limitations of my skill. Some of it was the decision-making process as far as my workflow. I did this in Procreate on my iPad with my Apple Pencil. Not because that program is particularly better than any of the other programs I use, but because it's got a really nice time-lapse feature where it captures every stroke you make, every change, as opposed to doing like a screen recording, which takes up a lot more space. So basically I've only used Procreate once a year for the last few years. So every time I do it, it's like another learning curve. Got to remember how to do this and how to do clipping masks and make selections and things like that. And just the way I laid this out, I ran into problems with the number of layers I could have for the resolution that I was at. And it made things very tedious, and I was trying to use method similar to what I would do if I was coloring a comic, or even most of my other illustrations I do this way at this point, is I do a detailed line drawing, and then I plunk in some flats, as they call them, which is just a solid block of color for the shape, which makes it really easier when you keep that on a separate layer to make selections, to do rendering in that selected area. So when I wanted to render the skin, like is going on now in the video, I didn't have to worry about bumping up against the edges of, the moss on his back or other things. But that just, like I said, made everything really tedious, and rendering became difficult, and I couldn't do some of the effects and things that I wanted to do, and some of the things with added textures. I really wanted, at one point I was thinking about having his back covered in ferns, and maybe if I was doing this in Photoshop where I had less limitations on the layers, and I could more easily make custom brushes and things like that, that might have been more feasible. Same thing with the skin. I wanted the skin to be more bark-like, and at one point I was thinking of having it covered in all kinds of lichen, but I ended up settling just for, skin coloration that mimicked that, like a beech or a birch kind of tree. So yeah, there are a lot of things that I'm not thrilled with, a lot of things that I would do differently, which isn't uncommon with any of my other pieces that I make. But, it is what it is, and I got to move on and just learn from this and try and do better next time. I did pack a lot of detail into this, as you can probably see, and if you check out my blog post about it, you'll be able to see some close-ups. But anyway, I'm out of time here. Happy birthday to my lovely wife, and do what the monkey says.